all you cool crooks and killers, welcome back to True Crime Now, your number one place on the internet for daily true crime videos. Imagine you were suddenly snatched away from the life you know and love without warning. You get no say, it just happens. That's the reality those on our list were forced to face. Today, we are counting down the 10 longest kidnapping survivors of all time that lived to tell the tale. Number 10. Kayla Brown, 2016, kidnapped for 3 months. For 3 months, Kayla Brown and her boyfriend Charlie Carver were missing with no signs of what may have happened to them. On November 3, 2016, Kayla was found in a metal storage container locked and chained up. The property belonged to Todd Kohlhepp, a registered sex offender, but there was much more to the case than a random kidnapping. The couple knew Todd as they were hired to do odd jobs around the house for him on a regular basis. According to Kayla, one day Todd just shot Charlie in cold blood and forced Kayla into the container in which she was found 3 months later. Shockingly, Todd was discovered to be a serial killer and also pleaded guilty to 7 other murders over the course of 13 years. According to authorities, Kayla was fortunate to have been found where she was. Number 9. Elizabeth Smart, 2002, kidnapped for 9 months. Elizabeth Smart is one of the most recognizable kidnapping victims in U.S. history due to extensive media coverage of the crime. On June 5, 2002, in Salt Lake City, Utah, a 14-year-old Elizabeth was asleep in her bedroom when Brian Mitchell snuck into the room and held a knife to her throat. He forced Smart out of her house to his wife, Wanda, who was waiting outside. She was held for 9 months, during which time she was repeatedly raped by Brian. When she was finally found in Sandy, Utah, her nightmare was finally over, and the man who kidnapped her will spend the rest of his life in jail. Sadly, his wife was only sentenced to 15 years in prison for her involvement. In the years since her kidnapping, Elizabeth has reclaimed her life and is now an author, spokeswoman, and inspirational speaker. Number 8. Patty Hearst, 1974, kidnapped for 19 months. The disappearance of the daughter of media mogul William Randolph Hearst is another famous kidnapping in American history. The Symbionese Liberation Army, or SLA, abducted Patty to extort her father. However, they changed their minds and used her as a tool towards their goal of liberation. During the 19 months of her captivity, Patty was brainwashed and helped the SLA commit further crimes. From bombings to armed robberies, Patty was charged for various crimes and actually served 22 months in prison before being released due to undeniable evidence that she was a victim of the SLA as well. This case is often used as an example of Stockholm Syndrome, where a kidnapping victim sympathizes with his or her captors. Number 7. Ben Ownby and Sean Hornbeck, 2002 and 2007, kidnapped for 4 years and 4 days. Ben Ownby was abducted by Michael Devlin in 2007 and found after only 4 days. However, upon Ben's discovery, the police found a boy named Sean Hornbeck too, a child who had been missing for 4 years. Being held in Devlin's apartment for 4 years took its toll on Sean. He had limited freedom, but claims he never actually tried to escape. If it wasn't for Ben's friend, Mitchell Holtz, providing details about the white Nissan pickup truck, it's likely that neither boy would have ever been found. Devlin was sentenced to life in prison for his crimes, and a foundation was set up to help with the search and rescue of other kidnapped children. Number 6. Stephen Steiner, 1972, kidnapped for 7 years. Stephen was abducted in 1972 by Kenneth Parnell, who was already a convicted child rapist. With the help of an accomplice named Irvin Murphy, Stephen was taken to a cabin and convinced that his parents gave him up because they couldn't pay for him anymore. Stephen was repeatedly molested by Parnell until he hit puberty. After many attempts to kidnap another boy, 6-year-old Timmy White was captured and held for 16 days with Stephen. When he realized that another child was going to have to live the same awful life that he had for so many years, Stephen decided to take action. When their captor was at work one night, the boys escaped together and hitchhiked to a local police station where they revealed their identities and were brought back to their families. Unfortunately, Stephen died from a motorcycle accident at the age of 24. Timmy, who was 14 at that time, was a pallbearer at the funeral. Number 5. Colleen Stan, 1977, kidnapped for 7 years. Colleen was going to a party in California when she accepted a ride from a man named Cameron Hooker, his wife and baby. Unfortunately, this was the start of a 7-year ordeal. Hooker pulled a knife on Colleen and took her to a remote area where she was placed in a wooden box. For the next 7 years, Colleen was tortured and sexually assaulted. At a certain point, she had had enough, and Hooker's wife was actually the one that helped Colleen escape. The authorities claimed that the torture put onto Colleen was like nothing they had ever seen before. Hooker was found guilty of numerous heinous crimes and sentenced to 104 years in prison. Hooker's wife was given immunity as she testified against him. If you think these are a long time to be away from home so far, just wait until you see how long our number 1 pick was held captive. Number 4. Natasha Campus, 1998, kidnapped for 8 years. In 1998, Natasha was abducted when she was just 10 years old. Natasha was kidnapped by a man named Wolfgang Priklopel, who locked her inside a small, windowless, soundproof basement under his house. The doors of the basement were even made of concrete. Wolfgang didn't let her leave the basement for the first 6 months of the ordeal, so she never knew if it was night or day. When he'd let her leave the basement, Wolfgang had Natasha do chores around the house and beat her if she didn't clean properly. After 8 years, Natasha was able to escape after she was allowed to vacuum the car and took advantage of being outside of the house. Unfortunately, Wolfgang was never brought to justice as he committed suicide. Number 3. Fusako Sato, 1990, kidnapped for 9 years. When Fusako was just 9 years old, a 28-year-old mentally disturbed man kidnapped her and kept her captive for 9 years. Sato, the kidnapper, held Fusako in a room in his apartment where he lived with his elderly mother, right next to a police station. Not once did Fusako try to escape. Police believe this was because of her age and the endless threats she received, along with regular shocks from a stun gun to keep her in line. It wasn't until 9 years later that police were called by Sato's mother, because he was violent towards her. They were shocked to find Fusako, now 18 years old. Remarkably, Sato served only 14 years for his crimes. Fusako never recovered from her ordeal and still has the mindset of a child. Number 2. J.C. Dugard, 1991, kidnapped for 18 years. When J.C. was 11 years old, she was abducted while walking to a bus stop in South Lake Tahoe, California. Philip Garrido and his wife Nancy used a stun gun to force J.C. into their car, and she was held captive for the next 18 years. During all that time, she was handcuffed, locked in rooms, and forced to dress up for Philip. It wasn't until 2009, when police were called to the University of California, that J.C. was finally freed. Philip, J.C., and her 2 daughters were trying to hand out religious flyers, and their weird behavior caught the attention of campus police. After being set free, J.C. reunited with her family, and she has written 2 books about her experiences. Alright, we've made it to our number 1 pick. Make sure to drop us a like to see more videos like this one. Hopefully, videos like these remind you to be aware of your surroundings at all times and might help you pay a little more attention when something doesn't seem quite right. Number 1. Cleveland Kidnappings, 2002 and 2004. Kidnapped for 11 years, 9 years, and 9 years. The most famous on our list, and the reason it is the longest for us, is that it involved 3 women. Amanda Berry, Michelle Knight, and Gina De Jesus were held against their will for a collective 29 years by Ariel Castro. Their ages ranged from 14 to 21, and it wasn't until Berry caught the neighbors' attention that the 3 women were finally rescued. All 3 women were raped and abused throughout their ordeal. Berry gave birth to a daughter, and Knight was impregnated 5 times but miscarried each one after being beaten by Castro. Thankfully, the 3 women have moved on with their lives and are bringing attention to missing person cases. They encourage friends and family not to lose hope. Castro himself was sentenced to 1,000 years in prison, but he unceremoniously took his own life just 1 month into his sentence. And there you have it, folks. The top 10 longest kidnapping survivors. To see more true crime videos every day, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We'll see you next time, and until then, don't be embarrassed to sleep with the lights on.